Hey, welcome back to Brandon Entertainment, where you get to decide if I'm worse at filming YouTube videos or the project I'm working on. For tonight's headache, we have a new hub for the Foreman 450, where we've been Okay, so we got a new hub though, and the wheel bearings in here are completely toasted and the ball joint's completely toast, so we need to get this taken care of, and then we can pull the four-wheeler in, take the front side apart, and I think I have the rest of the parts for the shock bushings, so I can get the front end of this thing taken care of and we can start moving on to the next one. But we're going to go ahead and put a new wheel bearing in here and a new ball joint, and hopefully this will go smoothly. Go ahead and pop this seal out of the outside. There's a snap ring down here. Gotta get that out. Go ahead and pop the other seal out. Nice and easy. Those are trash. Amazing how no matter how you need your snap ring pliers, they're always different. If you need them to open, they'll be closing. If you need them to be closing, they'll be opening. Hey, got one side of that. Looks like it's pretty stuck though. Yeah. Always want to wear eye protection, because when this stuff hits you in the face, it does kind of suck. Good old squint and glance method works as well too. So, got that snap ring out of there. I hope this bearing comes out without too much trouble. This thing's pretty crusted up. Get it in your vise so your bolt holes are sitting on the outside there. Get your big old honking socket. And your big old honking hammer. And that's usually when you realize it's going to turn into a much bigger thing than you had hoped, because the bearing's probably going to blow apart. Probably have more luck in a press. Unfortunately, our little press does not do well with these wheel hubs or spindles because it doesn't fit in there. We may need to get some penetrant soaking in here. And we might throw some heat at this thing. This jug is pretty boogered up. Let that get soaking for a minute. Probably have to hit that with a torch too. Fortunately, our vise is moving around quite a bit. Let's see if I can tighten that up a little bit, maybe help the situation out a little bit. Probably gonna have to put this down on a table and smack it down and get it started. Okay, we let that soak for a few minutes, and I do suggest if you're going to use a propane style torch, you get the yellow can, the MAP gas. It does burn a little hotter from what I've seen and what they say. Eventually figure out how to use a torch and just start heating it up. I'm sure it's probably not very good to be breathing in burning PV blaster in an enclosed space. So keep that in mind too. If you actually are going to try and live a long time. Really, that is probably pretty bad for you. may have to see if I can get this started in the press. She ain't moving a whole bunch. You can see since this spindle is good and warm, you can actually watch the penetrant get sucked down into that hole a little better. So we're going to hit this a few more times and let it just sit for a little bit. I need to mix up some breaker loose juice for over here. It's mineral, mystery oil, a little bit of ATF, and a little bit of acetone. Works very well. Let that sit for a few minutes instead of busting our asses for no reason. I'm sure the ball joint's going to be just as stuck. So, try it again in a minute. Okay, I was able to throw it in our little Harbor Freight press there, and it got it started. It took everything that poor little press had, and I was a little afraid something was going to explode. But it did start moving. Hopefully now it'll just knock right out of there. Like so. Which is basically like what it's supposed to do in the first place. This is your race here, your bearing. One bearing completely missing. I do usually hold on to a couple of the BB balls if they fall out. Or pull a couple out. I mean, they do come in handy sometimes. Smaller ones more so than the bigger ones. But it don't hurt to have a couple of them laying around. Now, before I put the new bearing in there, I'm going to go ahead and pop out this ball joint in case we have to get this thing all superheated too. We won't be totally trashing our new bearing with the heat. And of course, do I have 90-degree snap ring pliers? Yeah. I don't have my good ones. I may be using some crappy ones if I can't spin that thing around a little bit. That's okay. We can adapt. A lot of times, I was just about to say, a lot of times these wheel bearing kits do not come, or ball joint kits do not come with snap rings. So be careful you don't trash your snap ring, as I just completely trashed this snap ring. So that's okay. I believe I have some of them laying around somewhere. If not, I will be ordering some. Best way I've found on these, the 3/8 socket, about a 22mm. Which will be over here. That'll work. This is 7/8. Taking a long extension. Right through there. make sure your spindle here is sitting on the vise. You don't want tension on the ball joint. You just want to hold it in place. And proceed to heat, beat, and repeat. Got her moving there. Obviously your socket has to be small enough to go through the hole. And if you're not a dumbass like I am, you'll remember to look at the numbers on there before you beat the hell out of it. Makes it a little easier to make sure you put the right one in there. Alright. Now, that sucker's cleaned up. You can take just a small piece of emery cloth. You don't want to really remove material, just clean up any of the rust and junk in there. Just polish it up a little bit. Make sure you don't have any lips or burrs or anything that's gonna mess you up when you put your new ball joint in there. These can be a little tough without a press. Even with a press, they can be a little bit of a pain. Usually I do recommend using Honda parts for just about everything. However, the Moose ball joints, you're able to take the dust seal off of the ball joint, get it in there, and then put that dust seal back on. That seems to work a lot better for home garage kind of stuff, you could say. That way you're not trashing up that dust seal, putting it in there, and then having to replace it again pretty shortly. I don't believe I have any of those. I think I only have the Honda ones, but I will see. Now, again, without a press, one of your options is to freeze the ball joint a couple hours or so, put it in a freezer, let it get nice and cold, and then heat up the race here, or the spindle, and they'll slide pretty much right in there. The problem is with that is now you're kind of boiling off a lot of that grease, and you risk messing up the integrity of the ball joint itself right off the bat, which is not always a great thing. It's never a good thing, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. I'm fortunate enough that if I have any issues here right now, I can take this stuff to work tomorrow and do it on the big press at work. What I'm doing here is just kind of taking a pick and cleaning up some of the crap out of the little ring land. You can see the little groove there where that snap ring sits to hold the bearing in. Just clean any of the crap out of there. It's a whole lot easier to do it now than once the bearing's in there and you're realizing that your snap ring isn't sitting like it's supposed to. A couple minutes here can save you a bunch of time later on down the road. go scrounge out some parts now, and I will be back in just a second once I get them sorted out. And I don't remember the best way to put this in. Like that for right now, I reckon. Okay, I did actually have a moose bearing, moose ball joint that apparently I tried to put in something and it didn't work. I'll have to find a clip for it. But like I say, the boots come off of these relatively easily. These springs just unwrap and you can get it off. You need a 32mm deep socket, and you can get it go in there nice and square. That. Get it started in there. And you can do some trickery and use your beer gut to hold it in there. Go ahead and send it home. Make sure your clip is up, you're all the way down, or your groove is up out of the top surface here so you can get your snap ring in there. We're just about there. And you can kind of feel the difference once that's set all the way in, where it just stops. That's where you want it. Nice and easy, with no press. Now, take your boot, make sure you don't tear up your boot now. Make sure you still got plenty of grease down in there, and you can put your boot back on your ball joint. It can be a little tricky to get these springs back on here without tearing anything up, so you just gotta be careful. Go slow, kind of trying to expand it as you go. If you got weak little girly fingers like mine, use a screwdriver to expand it. And there you go. Now I just gotta find a clip for that, and we can start putting our wheel bearing back in there. This is why when you take stuff apart and you have new clips, save the old stuff, because you never know. Putting the device the right way make it a whole lot easier. And make sure your snap ring goes down in there all the way around. Kosher. Cool. That's good to go. Now we'll go find a wheel bearing, and we'll get a wheel bearing back in there. Okay, we run a lot of all balls bearings. They seem to hold up decently. They also have the coolest stickers. All balls. These little containers make great parts bins too. I've got a ton of them. Again, you want to make sure that goes in there nice and flush. Square, whatever. Push that one is not. Again. Okay, now once you get it here, you still need to get it down another 1/4 inch or so. There's several options here. If you have a socket or something that fits very close to this outer race, but inside of that spindle piece, you can use that to drive it down there. Another thing you can do is take your old wheel bearing, sit your bench grinder or something, grind it down so that it's just small enough that it'll fit inside of the spindle without getting stuck, and you can use that to drive it down there. I do that quite often. I probably have some laying around still. If I do, I will use that. Well, it appears that the races that I've saved have gotten gone. So, and I just really don't feel like, damn bang, there you go. Really don't feel like cutting down a race right now, and I can't find a socket big enough. So what you can do is, if you get something that fits exactly on this inner race, if it goes in smoothly, you can gently tap it in from there. This is a lot better with a press if you're going to do it like that. But you really want to make sure you're not getting on this outer seal. It's not going in quite as smooth as I like, so I'm going to see if I can find something else. Okay, I can't find anything, so I'm going to just bite the bullet and spend a little time knocking down this race. I'm going to need it here again soon anyway. Okay, if you want, save some of these ball bearings. If your kid has a slingshot, if you have a slingshot, they're great for that. Speaking of which, I really need to get my kid a slingshot. Probably not, but he'd probably like it. Mom probably wouldn't be too stoked. We'll see. He's only 3. Who do you guys think? When did you get your first slingshot? Or when did you get your kids the first slingshot? He's got a BB gun. I haven't shot him how to shoot it yet. He's still a little, don't listen real great, so a little concerned about that. Throw those in a bag eventually. And this collar you can keep if you want. It's probably good for something. I have a bunch of sockets that size, so I'm just going to chuck it. The rest of that, seals and all that, all garbage. All you need is this outer part right here. Then we'll go over to our handy dandy bench grinder there and spend a bunch of time turning it down until it fits inside of that wheel hub or spindle. Okay, I just ground down the outside of that until it's a little smaller than the inside diameter of this spindle here, you can lay that right on the outer race. Doesn't hurt anything, and then you can just use something nice and flat so you get that thing going in there nice and square. Be careful as you're going in. If this thing's starting to bind up inside there, you might not be able to get it back out. So just be aware of that. But that's set in real nice. And we are in pretty good shape right there. That way we didn't damage our seal or anything there. We can go ahead and I'm just going to clean up some of the rust off that snap ring. You take a marker right on here to save it so people don't throw it out. And more importantly, you don't throw it out. Maybe write, if you work on a bunch of different vehicles, write what vehicle it came out of. This is a 450. Front wheel. Now, a lot of this Honda stuff, 8, 10, 12, 14, 17 will get you done on most jobs. Sometimes on the aftermarket, ball joints will have a 19mm nut on the end of the ball joint. And this one obviously has a disc brake conversion kit on it. It is one of the best upgrades you can put on these Hondas. Unfortunately, our shock bushing stuff is not here yet because if you can see kind of the movement in that shock there, but those bushings are done as well. And since we're right here, we're going to just get everything we can taken care of on this four-wheeler, because this is the one my boss usually likes to use, and his was kind of one of the worst of the bunch last year. So I'm going to try and get all his maintenance stuff taken care of first thing this year, and he'll be ready to go. He's usually pretty careful on equipment, so this should easily last him the rest of the year with nothing but probably 2 oil changes and maybe an air filter or 2. I don't know what happened to that cotter pin. That thing is all jacked up. This is going to be a 17 on the bottom of your tie rod here. And they're not super tight in there, so put the nut on the bottom of the threads there. They should pop right out. You put your nut back on there so that you don't lose it. Go ahead and check your tie rods while you're here. Make sure those boots aren't all torn up. Make sure the tie rod ends aren't falling out. Nothing's bent up. Now I need to grab some pliers. Get these cotter pins out of here. We'll do that right quick. Forgot zip tie. Calipers don't really weigh anything, so not nearly as big of a deal as on a vehicle. When you got some boogered up freaking cotter pins like this, a lot of times it's easier to just go ahead and snip the ends off. Get it straightened out the best you can and just eliminate some of the headache. Obviously, if you have new cotter pins to use. If not, well, you gotta be a lot more careful than I do. I grabbed a 22 and a 24, which means it's probably a 21. No, it's a 22. And obviously, most of this stuff can be done without impact guns. It just makes it a whole lot easier to have them. Now, one thing I'm a little concerned about is getting these Allen bolts out of here. They've been in there a while. I believe they're Loctited. So I'm probably going to go ahead and throw a little heat on these I'm gonna get this whole hub off, and then I'm gonna throw a little heat at these bolts and smack an Allen socket in there with a hammer before I even try and take them out. But first we gotta get this whole spindle off of here. Not spindle, hell, I don't know, whatever the hell you call those things. And it is still hot in Georgia. Okay, so top one is a stock ball joint, so that's a 17 millimeter. Make sure you're not tearing up your brake line. Go ahead and break that guy loose. Run him most of the way off. Bottom one, you can use an impact if you want. Again, 17 millimeter. Now this is where get that guy off of there. Now with these ball joints, if you are replacing the ball joint, you can go ahead and grab a pickle fork and just jam a pickle fork in there. It'll separate the ball joint separator. Yeah, go ahead and knock them out. If you're not replacing the ball joints, a lot of times that's going to trash the crap out of them. So, what you can do go ahead and get your brake line out of the way here. So you don't do something stupid. Take your two big hammers. Right there. As soon as you stop swinging like a girl, they'll just pop down like that. And that ball joint separated, and the ball joint's still intact. This bottom one, just because I'm too lazy, this one I am going to be replacing with that, you know, the new hub assembly there. But nothing to just go ahead and separate that too. Apparently I have to put that dang nut too, huh? So. Now, we got that apart. Get a good look at your CV boot axles, make sure your CV boots, make sure they're still good. And we can take this hub over to the vise, and we're going to get this disc plate off of here. Normal 450 with drum brakes will not have this plate here. This is for the disc conversion kit. You'll have a backing plate for all your drum assembly that you will have noticed by now that is far different from what I'm dealing with. We got these Allen bolts here, and a lot of times you can save yourself a lot of headache by just doing a little bit of prep work on these things. Allen bolts seem to like to strip out a lot, especially something like this that's been rusted and dirt and mud and every damn thing stuck in there. And there's some cheapy Chinese freaking bolts. Take yourself a pick, clean out all the dirt and junk in there ahead of time, because once you start rounding these out, it's a whole lot harder to get them out than it is to just take a little bit of time, do it properly the first time, save yourself some headache. Again, I think there's some Loctite on these bolts, so I'm going to go ahead and heat up the spindle here a little bit, or hub, or whatever. I can't remember what Honda calls these. And the heat there will help break up the Loctite, make everything a little bit easier on you. Take your 5mm here, make sure it's in there nice. Give it a couple good whacks. Now with something like this, I'm not going to go straight to an impact gun. I'm going to at least try and break them loose first with a ratchet. That way you know that sucker is going to come loose. If you hit it with an impact gun, you might not be able to stop in time. When you're realizing it's starting to strip, you may not be able to stop in time before you already break it, or before you already round it out, and then you're going to have a long day. If you still have the stock drum brakes, there'll be a 12mm regular hex head bolt in there on your backing plate for your drum brake stuff, so you won't have to worry about any of this. There is a little bit of Loctite on those bolts, but they usually come right out. This one, it looks like the head's already a little messed up, so I'm going to get a little extra heat in this one. And if you don't pull the bolts all the way out, it's a whole lot easier to get your Allen socket out of there than trying to fool around with a hot bolt that's stuck on the end of it. Maybe one day I'll learn how to light a torch. Apparently not today, but that's okay. Nice and straight in there. And last one over here. And also, depending upon what you're doing, if you're trying to save the wheel bearings, you may not want to get as much heat in there. The wheel bearing and the ball joint on this, I'm not concerned about. So I can put a bunch of heat. Like, see that one now? Starting to round out just a little bit. If I had gone and just went ahead and hit that with an impact gun, probably would have rounded that right out. And I would have been sitting here cursing. We're going to go ahead and get some more heat in there. Again, I'm not too concerned about the ball joint, and the wheel bearing's already wasted. So I can go ahead and cook this sucker. I'm not going to melt any seals that I have to be concerned about. I'm much more concerned about keeping that bolt in good shape. And what you can do, since it already started to feel like it was rounding a little bit, just take your ball peen hammer, kind of put a little bit more material back down in there, get your socket, give that sucker a couple good whacks, and there she goes. And you just saved yourself a lot of headache by taking a couple minutes and being patient. Now remember, stuff's gonna be hot. They're coming right at it. Don't even need the impact. Just don't go grabbing them with your fingers. That will hurt. You will regret it. And since you have some heat in here too, it's a good time to go ahead and knock this plate off. It'll probably come right off there. I just don't want to grab it. Get you some pliers. Now we're just going to let everything cool down for a few minutes so I don't burn the heck out of myself. And we'll put the other one together. Okay, we've got our new hub here. Make sure when you put your plate on, if you're doing something with a disc conversion, make sure your plate goes on the correct direction. Looks like we're going to have to clean this up a little bit. Small piece of sandpaper. Obviously this is a used hub off of eBay. If this is a new one, you don't have to worry about any of this. want those bolts to come out, so we're going to put, even though this stuff is red Loctite, it's some cheap crap that I believe is the equivalent of blue Loctite. I hope. Otherwise, next time I have to do this, it's going to be a pain in the ass. But this is just some crap that came with some parts from somewhere. Very descriptive. Put way too much on there, but that's alright. But again, old Allen bolts. I'm just going to use a socket to tighten these down instead of an impact gun. Kind of make sure your plate's going down square. Not just bending the hell out of the plate like it appears that I am doing here. We may have to. Yeah, we're going to pull this back off and go ahead and hit on the wire wheel for a minute, just to make sure we don't have any issues. Ain't worth screwing up if you can take 15 seconds and do a better job. One of the most important things about mechanical work is just having some patience, which is very difficult for me. I am one of the least patient people on the planet, and I pay for it dearly all the time, both with time and money. Not only time, it's time, money, but parts are expensive when you break them because you do something stupid. So I'm just going to hit this on a wire wheel real quick. I'll be right back. I cleaned this up the best I could. It's still a little unflat there. Unflat, if that's a word. But it's just going to be good enough for now. This plate may have some warp in it. We're just going to go ahead and get it the best we can here, because I don't think we're really going to get it any further down onto here. There's no real burrs or anything. There's nothing that should really be stopping it. Hopefully, as we tighten these bolts down, they just kind of pull everything tight and don't break anything. Otherwise, I'll be upset after spending all that time not breaking the bolts coming out to go ahead and just break the crap out of them putting them in. Wouldn't be the first time I've done something stupid, though. Heck, wouldn't be the first time I did something stupid today. I've spent enough time trying to do this to the best of my ability, and now we're working on in the best of my time frame. It's, I don't know, about 11 o'clock at night right now. This is my side job. These are four-wheelers we use for our burning work, which I've got one video up so far that didn't seem to catch a lot of attention on here. Hopefully, I got some more video from last year. I'm going to try and edit and see what happens, and get some more this year. Hopefully start picking up some more interest in that stuff, because it really is a cool job. I'm still learning how to edit it and how to film it, so a lot of that's still on me. But hopefully that stuff will start garnishing. We'll start gaining some attention. And I really hope this YouTube channel does well. Got a good bit of content I can offer, if I don't annoy the hell out of everybody. But we'll see what happens. Alright, so we got our disc brake kit plate back on to our spindle here, facing the proper direction for our caliper to go in the rear, and we'll go ahead and get this back on the four-wheeler. Okie dokie, we're going back together here now, fortunately. So, I'm just going to clean up a little bit of dirt and whatnots on this spline section here. Put that through our spindle, a little more dirt out of the way. And we're just going to reverse the operation of taking it apart. Making sure we get cotter pins in both ball joints as well as the tie rod end. And the end of the axle nut here, or the end of the axle shaft in that castle nut on the axle. Make sure you get your brake line through there. One quick note too, as we're going back together, take these dirty rusty bolts over, take them on the wire wheel or hit them with a wire brush or something. Just clean them up a little bit, put a little bit of grease or a little anti-seize on them, make your life a lot easier next time you decide to come apart. Especially if you, like I say, you work in conditions like we do where they're constantly being ridden pretty hard and put through some rough conditions. It's you know, a little bit of grease on your splines in here, and just make sure you can get it back apart next time you gotta do some work on it. And that's all there really is to knocking out a wheel bearing and a ball joint at home with no press. Well, I used the press for the one piece. Probably could have gotten away with it with a whole lot more heating and beating. But very simple job. Don't be afraid to tackle it yourself. If y'all have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. And I appreciate y'all hanging out. Have a great night.